what I'm excited to talk about today, obviously, is social selling. I am the global head of B2B social sales strategy at an amazing company out of Europe called the Creation Agency. I run the actual creation sales division in the US. So watch out for more. And I want to give a big shout out to Max and Gabe, Max Altschuler with Sales Hacker and Gabe Villamizar. They did an excellent job of putting this event on. It's exciting that, we got Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, some really big names in sales. Got Trish Bertuzzi, one of my favorite females in the sales realm. Her new book is amazing, so go out and get that, Sales Development Playbook. And what I want to do is I kind of want to just dive into this. So the whole idea behind what I want to achieve today is I want to teach you the value of social selling. There's a lot of naysayers out there, and I think that a lot of times it's not as simplistic or the story's not told the way that it should be. So my job today is to tell this story in a way that'll help you kind of understand how you can use social to listen, attract, engage, connect, and nurture your buyers, because there's this misconception out there that social selling is just for prospecting, and that is absolutely false, right? Social selling is from online conversation to offline revenue close. And I'll kind of dive into that and give you little pieces of it as well as we go through it. So the first slide that I want to start with is what is a social selling drip campaign? Because that's really what I'm going to be talking about, is how can sales or anyone in the company leverage their social media feeds to create more conversations, more opportunities, and ultimately more revenue. And this is going to be give you a good explanation of kind of how I think. I think today in sales, we need to think a little bit more proactive versus reactive. We've been, lucky in the digital age. Anyone that was early adopters of marketing automation or, any type of digital marketing hacks were able to generate a lot more leads than the other companies. And, sales, SDRs, we were on the phone all the time. But those days are over, right? I mean, people are not giving you their data. So now sales has to have a proactive approach to selling. And that's a very scary thing. And I think that's why, there's so many people that are really scared of social selling, is because it's more of a proactive and a little bit more of a long-term play. But the cool thing is, if you're using social right and you're doing social selling correctly, then over time what you'll do is you'll stuff your conversation funnel, and you will have more conversations with the right people at the right time, and at the right level, right? Like decision makers. We're in sales today, we're stuck right in the middle, or we're stuck below below the decision maker. And we need to start high and be proactive about it. So if you see this funnel here, what it's actually telling you is that marketing's always had a funnel, and they've always given themselves kind of a guidance of how to follow the buyer's journey with everything that they do. And you can see here with sales, and they talk about account-based marketing. You could call this that if you wanted to. I really don't care what you call it, but essentially what happens is sales has to start at the top of the funnel in a proactive manner. And what I mean that is, they've got to go out, they've got to listen to see who's talking, who are their buyers that are talking on social, what do they need to be looking for, and then they need to actually start getting connected with these people, right? And attracting these people, connecting with them, and then moving them down the funnel and getting connected at multiple levels within the organization before the buyer's even ready to have a buying conversation. So if you can get visible and valuable first, then you can earn the right to ask for their time or business. And I know this is a scary kind of concept, but it shouldn't be, right? Let me give you an analogy. If you're going to be home on a Friday night, you still lived at home with your parents, and you wanted to go spend the night at your buddies, and it was Friday morning, and your mom was at work, and she probably wasn't going to let you stay at your buddy's place. My thoughts would be, if my mom's car was home, I would wash her car. I'd probably go clean my room, which I'm really bad at, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to do the dishes. So I'm going to do 3 things so that when my mom gets home, she's going to really be, it's going to be so unexpected. She's going to go, oh my gosh, you did such a great job. And then I'm going to ask her for something. And I think that we have to have this mentality in sales today, right? Like, yeah, I'm not saying you take away the phone. I'm not saying you take away email. Actually, I believe that social selling will actually get you on the phone more, and it will get you more data and information to actually have relevant emails go out to your buyers or your prospective buyers and actually connect with them, where it'll actually keep them engaged, but on the same aspect, it'll actually get them to take action and do something, right? We run so many demos in the world of sales today, but how many of those demos are actually real, right? Are we actually in a real deal? Social selling, and if you see this, as you work your way down the funnel, you're actually working with marketing. So as marketing content goes out, sales is watching who's engaged with that content, getting engaged, getting valuable, getting visible, and getting connected to those buyers, and then nurturing them down until, if you're using marketing automation, that they actually get to a lead score where you should be having a conversation with them. Too many times, sales, marketing goes at the top of the funnel, and by the time sales gets into a conversation with them, maybe they get to a lead score or whatever your, MQL standards are, then boom, sales comes in, and they're already down at the middle of the funnel. They're not connected with the right person. They're not talking to the right person, and they're starting backwards. So if marketing, messages go out and, they're going out in that early prospecting phase, right, to get people educated, marketing's trying to get visible and valuable, and sales has got to be right there with them, right? And when they move down the funnel, by the time you get to the middle of the funnel, is if you see here, right, you'll already be connected with multiple people in the organization. You already have had engagement. Those people will already know who you are, and you will move your deals through the pipeline faster because you'll already be connected with the decision makers and you'll already be engaged with them. And by the time you get on the phone, if you've done it right, they'll look at you as an advocate versus a salesperson. One thing I want to say is this is not a one-size-fits-all strategy, but this should be part of your strategy. Every salesperson should be blocking out 45 minutes to an hour at the max to do this stuff, right? To get into their targeted accounts, to get connected with those targeted decision makers within that organization, and start getting visible, start getting valuable multiple times along a certain period of time with patience, right? Because nobody's ready to buy today, but everybody's ready to buy after you've done enough and you've given them enough value, you've done a good enough sales, pitch, you kind of organically work them through the funnel. And more organizations, in my opinion, should be doing this. Jason Sibley, my CEO, actually came up with this. We kind of worked on the strategy together of how we should think it should be done. And we're going to be doing it with some of our clients. We actually are doing it with a few right now, but a lot of people are interested in this model because it actually, makes salespeople earn the buyer's trust and get connected with the buyer and earn the right to ask them for business. And we need more of that in sales today. Okay, so I'm going to start with a story, and I think that social selling can be tough because a lot of people are like, okay, well, what is it? And there's so many explanations. So let's start with a story and let's end with the story. So throughout this story, what I'm going to say to you is I'm going to give you a fishing analogy. And I always find that this is the easiest way to get people to kind of understand the value of social selling. So let's start here. Let's say that you're going to go fishing with your dad. Now, social media is going to be the lake as I talk about this, right? And there's all these different channels that flood into the lake. So you've got, Twitter, LinkedIn. Let's just stick with those two. So Twitter and LinkedIn, there's all this engagement going on, and then they go into one big pool, which is social media. Now, you and I and everyone has a fishing pool, right? We're all given a fishing pool, and we're all given a hook. So we can either decide to go to the lake or not go to the lake. Most people, I would say, are trying to fish, but they just don't know how, right? So we throw the hook in, and the hook kind of just sits there. But no fish ever bit a hook, right? Unless I'm wrong. If anybody out there has had a fish bite just a hook, then let me know because you might be a fishing legend. So what does the hook look like, right? So how do we get something on the hook to actually get the fish, right? So let's move on to the next slide. So listen. So the way that I look at listening is, before you go out into the big ocean or a big lake, you've got to understand where the fish are. So a lot of people buy a fish finder. If you look at fish finders, they could be analytics tools, right? There's a lot of different analytics tools out there. Twitonomy, let's just, for example, for Twitter. And then, Navigator, there's all kinds of different social listening tools within LinkedIn tool. So you can actually go out and see what your buyers are saying and who's your ideal buyer, right? Use that data to actually get a buyer persona so that you know who, before you start going out in social selling, is your target buyer, right, or your target market. Once you figure that out, and if I could give you a little scenario, let's say that you're looking over the lake and all of a sudden you see the bubbles pop up, right? You see there's fish over there. Well, marketing's job is to get those bubbles to pop up, right? And then sales has to go and navigate the waters to figure out, are those the right fish, and what are those fish biting on, right? So if you're listening correctly and using data, then that's the first way to get your social selling drip campaign going. And marketing's doing drip campaigns now with email, right, with stagnant data. So sales needs to start getting their own social drip campaigns. And when I say that, I mean giving their buyers some value or content, and being very strategic about what they post, when they post it, and why they post it. Because really what we're trying to think of here in this scenario is we're going out looking for the fish, right? And then the second piece of this is, how do we attract the fish, right? So if we throw out the hook, and that would be content. Let's just use like LinkedIn or Twitter, for example. We tweet something, we put out a piece of content. How do we attract the right fish? Because I think a lot of us are stuck in that, right? It's like, okay, we're doing social media, but we're not really, getting any buyers interested. It's all these people we don't want or couldn't buy our product. Well, I can tell you that that's a big problem in social media today, a big problem in social selling. So if you look at your social selling process as a drip campaign on a daily basis that you make a commitment to or you're consistent with, you look at content as the bait. So let's say that you go out in the water and you throw out, a worm and a night crawler and you get a big carp. Well, I'm sorry, but nobody ever eats carp, right? Like carp are bottom feeders and they're not going to be good for eating, and your buddies aren't going to be that excited or think you're that cool for the simple fact that you brought home a carp, right? So we've got to figure out, how do we put targeted bait on there so that we get that buyer to come over to the hook and we attract them around our hook, right? Because the more buyers we have around our hook, the more opportunity that we're going to give ourselves to actually be efficient with our time, give us more conversations and more revenue, right? So as we figure out the content, using let's just say a technology like BuzzSumo. So if I'm in technology, let's just say I'm in marketing technology, I probably want to use 5 key terms like hashtags on Twitter, or I want to use 5 key terms or 5 areas of content that I want to share only on LinkedIn, right? So let's say digital marketing. I sell a marketing automation platform. I should be, my hashtag should be marketing automation, digital marketing, and we could even do sales and social selling, right? Maybe those are the 5 key terms that we're going to use. So we're only going to share content. We're going to use BuzzSumo to go find the hottest content, because fish don't want old bait. No fish likes an old piece of crap bait. The fish want the meaty stuff that's really, really fresh. And that's the way you've got to think of your social feeds, is you got to think of them as having the freshest, most current and targeted content so that your buyers actually come to you and look at you as a trusted resource, right? So the second piece to this is, or the third piece, I'm sorry, is now we've got to get them to engage. And this is where a lot of people go wrong on social media, because A, they're not consistent enough with the last process. So you've got to be posting 5 to 10 times a day on LinkedIn and on Twitter, because the more quality content that you put out, obviously the more opportunity you're going to give yourself for fish to come to the hook. And then when they're nibbling on the hook is really where you see the engage piece. So if I post some content and somebody engages with it and I do a little research, I want to engage the buyer, right? And I don't want to be selling them, but I want to get them to bite hard enough so that I can actually pull the hook, right? So that takes time. A lot of salespeople, A, they don't get engaged, but B, they don't engage fast enough, and they're not relevant with their engagement where it's value versus ask, right? So social selling, we've got to get this mindset where we're thinking, okay, what can I do for the buyer proactively versus reactively? And that's going out and finding their content, sharing it, sharing a webinar, right? Getting them more signups, going and introducing them to another buyer out of the blue. Great strategy. I don't know if you've ever done this in sales, but I would highly recommend that if you're looking to prospect a company, figure out, get on a demo with that company, go talk to one of their salespeople, figure out what they do, and then figure out who of your buyers is looking for what they have to offer, or what product could help them, and introduce the two at the decision maker level, and start your relationship off giving them an opportunity at business. Because I will tell you, so many salespeople want to ask for something without giving anything, and they get the same result as the 80% that never hit quota, right? They get no, they don't even get the meeting, or they get stuck below the line. So we've got to start thinking proactively. How can we use social to connect the dots to give before we ask, right? And it's really not that hard. There's a prime example. I would love for you to try that. If you're in sales, figure out who your target accounts are. Go do a demo with one of their salespeople. Be transparent. Hey, just want to see what you guys do. I have a great network of buyers or customers that are always looking for solutions as yours. Do the demo, and then you rack your brain. Go find one of your customers and just ask them, hey, I found this really cool tool. I'd love to introduce you to the vice president of sales over at the company you're prospecting, and it will do wonders for you. Trust me. It's a little value hack that I call it. So now that we've got them engaged, right? Somebody's sharing our content, or they're retweeting our content, or they're engaging. Now we've got to engage, right? Like, let's figure out a way to get visible and valuable through engagement. And I'm not going to dive into that. I just don't have the time right now, but I've got a lot of content on that. And it's really, really simple process, right? I don't think engagement has to be anything crazy, but you do have to think about, am I being valuable, or am I being a salesperson? That's the mindset shift. You got to have that. Okay, so the fourth piece of this pie is to connect, right? So we're doing all these things, right? We're posting content to get them to come to the hook, quality content. We've listened, we've figured out where we need to be in the lake, and from social media perspective, to get the right buyers, or give the opportunity. And then we've got engaged, right? So now we're starting the visibility and value process early, be proactive. But now here's the key. Get connected. I can't tell you how many sales reps that are in the sales process alone that I go, okay, are you following the CEO, the vice president, and the vice president is, are you following 3 to 4 decision makers on Twitter that are social, right? Are you engaging with them? Are you connected with them on LinkedIn? And then all the way through the sales process, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we're not connected. Well, you're dead, right? In my opinion, people do business with people that are connected. So if you can start at the top of the funnel, like I talked about, and before you even get to the point where you're going to reach out and ask the buyer for something, if you've already connected with 3 decision makers within that organization, you are in a really, really good spot. So we've got to use, the listen, the engage, the nurture. Listen, engage. We've got to use that all to get connected, because, like I said, it's so important to be connected. The bigger your network, right? The bigger your net worth. You've heard that a million times. But what I like to say is, the more visible and valuable you are on social, and creating the drip campaign like I'm talking about, will grow your network, and it'll grow a targeted network, if you're doing it right, of buyers, right? So you'll be stuffing your conversation funnel, I call it. Now, as we've connected, the next step is super important, right? Nurturing. So we're connected, we're listening, we're nurturing. When I say nurturing is, I mean being patient, right? Doing the 3x to 5x rule, making sure that, hey, I'm going to be connected to 3 to 5 people within that organization before I reach out, and I'm going to have been an advocate for 3 to 5 people at least 3 times or more, sharing and engaging on content, looking on posts. And once I've done that, now I've got a really good shot at going into that account and asking them, leading with value. Hey, I've been reading a lot of your content. I'm connected with your CEO. I'm connected with your VP. And, I just love to have a conversation sometime about kind of like what you guys are doing, and, use their content as the key driver right behind that, right? You got to be genuine. Obviously, always have the right motive. If you don't, get out of sales. But nurturing is a big piece of the pie that people miss in social selling, because they want to go right in for the kill. And if you do that, you're going to get killed, right? It's actually going to backfire on you more than any other thing that you could do. Cold calling, sending any, cold email. social selling, you've got to be very delicate with it, because if you don't, you might lose that opportunity forever. So nurturing, being patient, and if you want to think about it from a fishing analogy is, the fish come up and they bite your hook, right? They bite your bait, bite your bite, but you don't yank the pull every time, right? Good fishermen know when there's the right bite. And I think that salespeople have to understand that too, from a social perspective, is being patient, being targeted, and staying on the buyer's radar while you're visible and valuable, and then knowing that, okay, it's probably the right time, right? Now I'm going to go and I'm going to do a call, or I'm going to send an email, or however you want to do that, but or ask them online, right? I mean, I've moved people offline on Twitter with one tweet, right? But it's not that easy usually. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone, because I'm never going to advocate for not picking up the phone, but I will advocate for, before you pick up the phone, go do something. Give somebody some value. Give them a reason to get on the dang phone with you, and not only that, but give the right person the reason to get on the phone with you. And if you're doing this whole process with your social drip campaign and you're stuffing your conversation funnel, you're in a really good spot that pretty soon, every week, you'll have the KPI of moving 3 to 5 people offline at the right level with the right companies and getting into that business conversation, right? Because if you don't go offline, you're just social. If you do go offline and you get people in the sales process, now you're actually doing social selling. And I think that's another big piece that most miss, right? Is you've got to get offline. You have no choice. And get offline as an advocate versus a salesperson. And when I say that, I mean, get offline where they know who you are, because you have been visible and you have been valuable. And then the second piece to that is get offline with the right person. I can't talk about that enough. We're just spinning our wheels in sales today by not doing that. Okay, so as I've told you this with the sales drip campaign, social selling drip campaign, talking about listening, attracting, engaging, nurturing, and then moving offline, is I want you to think about that. I kind of talked about that from a proactive kind of like prospecting, method, and starting at the top of the funnel and moving them down. But now what I want you to do is top to bottom flip, right? So we're at the top, and now flip the funnel like, you see a lot of times. This is where I see you flip the funnel, is now you've got them into the sales process. Now start this whole journey over, right? You've got somebody in the sales process. Keep being visible, keep being valuable, and you won't lose deals. So let me give an example. How many salespeople out there have an amazing meeting? You get off the phone, you run to your boss, and you're like, oh man, these guys are going to buy. Like, I just nailed this meeting, okay? I mean, this happened to me, and it still happens, to the best of us. And then, they say, you're with a decision maker, but you got to get another decision maker involved, because we all know that happens. And the phone hangs up, and, the meeting was won, but the deal was lost as soon as the phone hung up. It's because we don't know in sales how to fill time gaps without asking for something. So, go through your email inbox. If you're just begging people to buy, right? Begging for their time, begging for them to sign the contract, begging for them to get you to the decision maker. What are you doing in those time gaps when the phone hangs up to actually be valuable and be valuable within multiple decision makers within that group before you get to the next point where you're going to ask them for something? Use value touches and use social to do that. Think strategically. What could I do for the CEO of this company, the VP of this company, to help them get more visible? Could I share my network to them, right? Could I share that they just were on the Inc. 500 list? Congratulations. Could I drive traffic to their website by sharing something? Could I drive leads to their webinar by sharing their webinar, right? I mean, marketing spends a lot of money on webinars anymore. So you've got to think strategically. How can I help them generate business before I ask for their business? Social has so many creative ways to do that. I would love to be able to have time to show you all of the little hacks and so forth, but I just want you to think about this. So let's let's kind of go over this one more time. So I talked about the social selling drip campaign, kind of as a phishing scenario. So, we throw out the hook. The first piece of this is go to use a social listening tool, figure out where your buyers are, what their buying signals are, what hashtags they're using, what terminology they're using, where are they living, what social channels, and then go figure out using BuzzSumo what good, relevant, hot content's coming out as the bait to put on that hook to attract the fish to you, right? And you're using content in your social feeds, being consistent. And then the third piece is, and let me, I'll have to go back here because I know there's a lot. Okay, so listening, attracting, and then engaging, right? Engaging means keeping them around the hook, right? Keeping them engaged, adding, value touches, staying visible, staying valuable through engagement over time, being patient, and waiting for the right nibble, which is an actual bite versus a nibble, to pull. And then you're going to go into connecting, right? And connecting with the buyers as they bite the hook, right? And you have to connect with multiple buyers. So you have to connect with the CEO, the VP, and I'm just giving you a scenario. Maybe you're not selling to CEOs, that's okay. But the 3 top decision makers in the group, or the ones that the data is telling you are the decision makers, you're getting connected at that point. And then the last piece of that pie, right, is nurturing that. So now you're getting more visible, you're getting more valuable, and you're getting to the point where when you pick up the phone, you call them, they go, they'd almost feel like they knew you because you've built that digital relationship so well through nurturing. And now you're connected to so many different people within that organization. You're visible and you're valuable. And it should be easy from there, right? If you've done it correctly. And when I say easy, I'm not saying that as a light statement. It should be easy. And then the last piece of that is now, like I said, you've got to have patience, but you've got to do the call to action. You've got to figure out, whether that's picking up the phone, sending an email, sending a tweet. You've got to make that move when you feel it's right. Pull the hook and move them offline, and then lead with value. I always lead with value, and when I say lead with value, just give you an example. If somebody's written a piece of content and I really got some value out of it, I would love you to reach out and say I would love to have a phone conversation with you sometime about your piece of content, right? Don't talk about your product for the first meeting. Get to know these people a little bit, and then if you hear things that you think would make them a really good target buyer, then don't be afraid. Like be confident. Hey, you know what? I just heard a few things that you'd said during our conversation. Would you be open to taking a look? I think we could really help you in a few areas if I heard everything that you said correctly. And by that time, I'm pretty sure, just like your mom when you asked her if you get to go stay at her friend's house after cleaning your car, washing the dishes, you probably have a pretty good shot at that point. And the last part is, repeat this. Don't ever stop the social selling process. Your customers are the best people to be listening, sharing, engaging with, because you want to listen to buying signals. If they get more funding or whatever that may be, that's probably a good time to go in and ask for the upsell, right? And you can ask for it because along the way, whether that's 1 month, 6 months, you've already been an advocate for them, sharing their content and so forth. So they know that you're actually trying to help them generate business, get more visibility. So awesome. I'm done. I would love for your questions. Hopefully you got some value out of this. The phishing story. Now go get your social selling drip campaign set up, right? And start doing some targeted accounts. Start with targeted accounts, block off a little time in your day to make sure you're doing all these steps. And I can tell you, and I promise you, it will work. And also, reach out to me inside my LinkedIn profile. You can click a button, and you can actually book 15 minutes with me. I won't talk about myself at all. Just kind of hear, what kind of issues you're having, or see if there's any way that I could help answer any of your questions. So I'm excited for the rest of the kickoff. So hashtag sales kickoff 2000, or I'm sorry, hashtag sales kickoff 16, and peace out. Happy social selling. Thank you, guys.